build that capacity. So we put that into our capital plan. We then undertook, when the Cultural Spaces Canada grant opportunity came along, we undertook a business case in support of an application for that. So we had a business case in here to support the need for
business case,
right? So it looked at, the business case looked at basically how many visitors would you have to the theater, how would it contribute towards audience building, organizational capacity building.
But why a theater? Why, you know, we had a bank, we have a location, but why the theater? Why not another revenue generator? Like, why not a splash water park for families?
Well, when you look at the cultural plan, it had a series of recommendations within it, and it talked about creating a department of culture. It talked about, you know, how you have to build capacity for the arts. And so when you think about building capacity for the arts, it's through building cultural infrastructure.
Got it.
It's through grant programs. It's through the creation of the department and so forth. And so that was the plan that really recommended that. So business case was developed, application was put in, and we were successful in basically receiving funding.
So the business plan was the analysis. The applications are obviously in the planning.
The planning, and part of the planning too, part of that work was knowing that we had a very tight timeline to work within. So we were dealing with basically 1+ year to have this thing from plan, design, build. So we had to really move to a new method of delivering a project, and that was construction management. So we retained Bill-led architects to do the architectural work for us, and then we also basically looked at construction management. And so that was the technique that we used to deliver this project for the timelines that we were given.
Now, in terms of when we talk about a budget, talking about money, there was a certain amount of grants. Was there any tax dollars involved to see this project off the ground?
Absolutely. So if we look at the financing for it, there's really 3 components to the financing. There's contributions from the taxpayers. So if we look at what the cost of the theater is, $6 million.
Okay.
That's the cost.
So our budget for this theater was $6 million. All right.
So then we have basically, we have the federal government contributing $2.85 million. Okay, that's the federal government. So through the great work of Patrick Brown.
Our good man, Patrick Brown.
Absolutely. Brought $2.85 million to the table. We then built in a structure that looked at $1.3 million towards
business.
capital fundraising effort here. And so through the work with Glenn Colson and Lance Chilton, we were basically working towards that goal of $1.3 million.
And that's grants.
That's a capital fundraising campaign. This is the grant right here, 2.85.
Okay, sorry. So this is the fundraising.
Right. So then that really leaves the city's contribution of $1.85 million. So when you add it all up, you should have the $6 million. That's the financing for the project.
So in actual reality, I just want to clarify. City tax dollars is 1.85. This in essence is a joint venture. Like most development projects, we would bring in a landowner, we would bring in a developer, we'd bring in sources of financing. We would all come together, and each person would contribute. On this being a public project, we see that there are joint ventures, and so doing joint ventures is a very common thing on most developments that we're going to see. So in this particular case, the Fed's 2.85, the fundraising that our good man Glenn Colson did. And then the actual net tax dollars is 1.85 for a total of $6 million. Okay, so
financing.
So, but getting these numbers approved in terms of putting it, did this have to go to council, I guess?
Oh, council approval has been throughout the various stages of the process, which is typical of most capital works.
Okay, so now technically there's no sales then. We're in this stage of sale. There is no sales where we start recouping our money very early on before the project even goes in the ground in the construction phase. We needed to spend in fact we are going to be spending all of our money before we even see any dollars yet. That's correct.
So once it's operational, then the facility will be available for lease, and so that's a source of revenue from the facility.
So in terms of where we're at, we're at about here right now, just about.
We are almost complete, so we're expecting to construction completion within August. And
big question: Are we within budget?
Well, that is the total budget that we're within. So we started out with a 5.4, and we're now to a $6 million. So we had a few unforeseen issues in terms of structural support and so forth. You got to remember that you're building a new facility adjacent to existing buildings that are. In the condition that they're in, so you have to be careful.
So we originally started with $4 million. was 4.8, was it about?
It was a $5.4 million project.
5.4 was our original.
And then we had basically some unforeseen costs such as extra structural support that brought it up to the $6 million. So that's where we ended up, $6 million.
Okay.
So,
okay. And so this change in budget, because in most developments, there's always contingencies, there's always things. Was this brought out in the construction phase, or was this brought out in the architectural design phase?
The beauty of the construction management technique is it allows you, as you go through, there's a series of tenders that get issued as you move through the design, and as you see costs starting to go out of budget line, then
right.
you're able to scope back the work, scale back some work, and get the budget back to within what is a workable budget. So
okay.
The technique worked really well for us.
Okay, so now we're just going to take a bit of a break. We'll be right back, and we're going to really wrap up and say, where is the money in this theater? We'll be right back on Developing for Dollars.